Hello and welcome to another episode of the PA Path Podcast. Before we get started, we would like to extend a special thank you to our episode sponsor, Lincoln Memorial University. Today we speak with Dr. Edward Will Williams, Program Director for the University of Arkansas PA Program. Dr. Williams hails from Montgomery, Alabama, and he is a decorated veteran from the United States Army. Dr. Williams began his military career as a combat medic in 1991 and went on to complete the military's IPAP program in 2003 to become a BA. Dr. Williams went on to earn a master's in education from the University of Phoenix while he was stationed in South Korea, and later earned his Doctor of Medical Science degree from the University of Lynchburg. Dr. Williams is a Bronze Star recipient. He was also awarded the Air Medal and Legion of Merit. As a PA, he was the medical officer in charge of Troop Medical Clinic in South Korea. He retired after 22 years of service and went on to become a PA educator. Will, thank you so much for joining Steph and I today to talk about the PA profession, about your program. We're excited to have you and excited to learn about your path. It sounds like there's some interesting twists and turns to your path from your military experience to becoming a PA. Let's start with that question. Tell us about how you ended up choosing to become a PA and what path you took.
Again, thank you for having me. I am honored to be on this show and this podcast. And my path as a PA started probably before I even got into the military. I knew I wanted to be in the medical field. I did one of those summer programs like many kids do in high school and work with medicine. I knew I wanted to be in that field, and that just lit a fire into me. Before I graduated from high school, I met a recruiter and decided I wanted to join the Army. At first, I wanted to join the Air Force. I know you're Navy, Kevin, but I was in the Air Force ROTC, wanted to join the Air Force, but they did not guarantee me a medical position as an enlisted person. I jumped on board with the Army and started that in 1991. So I was a medic for about 11 years. I worked with PAs, as you can imagine, as a medic, but my inspiration and aspirations were to go to medical school, wanted to get part of the USHIS program. And so I got my associate's degree and then we're working on my bachelor's degree to apply. And met my wife, had kids, and realized that there's a better path to take care of patients than just going to medical school. And I started talking more with the PAs I work with and saw how they were so engaged in teaching medics things about medicine. So I applied to the Inter-Service Physician Assistant program in the military 3 times. And what's unique about the IPAP program is they don't, at least back then when I applied, they don't interview. They don't have in-person interviews. They just take your packet and your picture and you make a decision. So I'll claim that as a reason it took me so many times to get in, but I was determined and I did get accepted in 2001, graduated in 2003 from the IPAP program, and then did 2 deployments to Iraq, one as a PA in the 1st Cav Army unit, and the second one as an aeromedical PA in the Air Cav unit there. And then came back, spent about 5 years in Korea, and then retired in 2013. So total, I spent 22 years in the Army, 11 as a medic, and 10 as a PA, and that got me into going into where I am now. But that's what got me into the PA profession, is really falling in love with the opportunity to be able to practice medicine and not have this disconnect between developing and growing a family early on in my life. And it fit perfectly well. And I never looked back since then.
Thanks for your service, especially for your combat service. We appreciate that. Can you talk a little bit about the difference, because you've experienced it firsthand, the difference between being a combat medic and then about midway through your military career, you switched over to being an officer and a PA. What was that like, and what is clinical practice like in a combat theater for a military PA?
It's a good question. As a medic, I loved being a medic. I got to do so many things, go into the field and doing all these practice exercises, but I wanted to know more. I wanted to be able to do more. And what the difference I noticed in going from being a medic to a PA is that, one, your status changes, you become an officer. And so that was a bit of a transition for me to go from being enlisted. I was an E6 when I got into PA school, to becoming a lieutenant and later a captain. So that hierarchy change in that how people address me, getting saluted after me saluting officers for 11 years was an adjustment for me. Very much parallels to taking over as a PA program director too, but I can get into that a little later. But the difference in the medicine when I was practicing in the Army, especially in combat, is that there's structure to it and policies and procedures and guidelines and best practices, but there's also the injection of a bit of chaos that you can't predict. And so managing patients in the healthcare and the combat environment, and I think many people can attest to that has been in that situation. You have to be adaptable to the situation and don't let the panic set in too quickly or take over your irrational thought. And that was helpful for both deployments. I was blessed enough that in both times we deployed, no soldiers in either one of the units I was in were lost during combat. Now, that's not because of me or because of anything I did specifically. It was a team effort, but it's a good thing to be able to say that happened because that wasn't the case in many units. And I definitely feel fortunate for that. And so it really goes to the autonomy that you have as a PA. I had a supervisor physician that was there, both deployments, but there was still that autonomy that PAs exercise as far as seeing patients, shift work that they do when they're deployed, and just managing patients to the best of your ability with the tools you had. We had resources to send soldiers up to higher levels of care if needed, which worked out well, but it's practicing medicine with a different approach to what the goal is.
You struck a chord with me in terms of that sentiment about not losing anybody in your group. The chaos that comes in combat sometimes can be incredibly frightening and distracting and even disabling to some. And I would imagine that not only are you having to deal with the medical emergencies at the time, but you're also having to, I would assume, have some sort of conscious thought as a leader about signaling to your team, like keeping them on track, not letting them get distracted by the fear and the chaos. But in fact, I know you train a lot in the military for these things, but to actually experience it in real life is another story. So talk a little bit about the emotion that you have as a leader in those situations and how you were able to self-manage and also take care of yourself for wellness.
Really good questions, Kevin. And I think one of the things in both the deployments, and I run through my memory about those different things, it's been a while now. But in both of those situations, I think the thing that helped the most and helped keep things running as smoothly as possible is practicing and training with the medics during the times that we had available to us to do those things. Sometimes the soldiers the medics that I work with would get a little upset because I was a little too repetitive at times with the training and what they should be doing and what they should be expected to do. But I think working with them on that training, being a part of the practicing and going through the steps, but also just checking on soldiers when things are in a lull. So they see a face, they know that you're there and that they can come to you or reach out to you if something's going on, as well as when go outside of the wire. I did not go outside of the wire a whole lot in my first deployment. We were responsible for protecting the green zone in Baghdad and keeping those gates secure. So there wasn't a lot of outside of the gate other than medical missions. But in my second deployment, we were flying. So we flew a lot all over Iraq, but it was touch and go on bases. So it was not the same type of combat that people imagine and maybe see on movies, but there's a lot of interpersonal management that takes place. And I think it goes by, if they see you are calm in stressful situations and you're managing things in a stressful situation, it helps for them to feel the same way. And so I think the key thing is having that mental realization that if you look like you're losing them, they're going to look, because you're the person that's supposed to be an expert in that difficult time.
I want to, again, reiterate and thank you for your service before we switch into a different topic, because it's clear both you and Kevin have sacrificed a tremendous amount and contributed a tremendous amount to our country and to the men and women that serve. So thank you very much to both of you for that. Switching gears just a little bit, I want to go back to your path. You've talked a bit about your path into medicine, and it seems like you played the long game there. But in looking at your resume and the degrees that you've earned, it seems like you played the long game in getting into education too. Can you talk a little bit about your parallel interest between medicine and education and kind of your path into the educational piece of your career?
I think and not to get back too much into the military aspect, but that's where that spark of being an educator really started, as a training medics, teaching medics, and getting feedback from them as far as how much they got out of it. And I started realizing it was like this charge, this energy that I got from doing it. And so I think the birth of my interest in education started in the military. I actually applied to teach at IPAP at one point, but timing and a lot of other things didn't allow that to happen. And so shortly after applying, I retired with the idea of looking for a PA program to work at. And one manifested itself in 2014, where I'm at now. And I think the more I got involved with it, I think it's just like with all PAs that get into academia, they know very little about what academia is like because we didn't get formal training in PA school about that. And so it's a learning game. And so I do not thrive or do well on not knowing enough to do the thing I need to do. So it was a quest for me to get that knowledge and that education as much as possible. I got my master's in education primarily to apply to the IPAP program, and that carried over into where I'm at now. And then my doctor of medical science through University of Lynchburg in the academic track is what got me to where I am now. Now, each one of those degrees, from my associates to my bachelor's, master's, my doctorate, each time I said, okay, I'm done with formal education. I'm not doing it anymore. This is enough for me.
From someone who's currently working on my 4th degree, I hear you. Never again, I say, never again.
Mm-hmm. But there's always something that you say, I'm interested in knowing more about this. And I think people who really enjoy educating really enjoy learning as well. And I think that just goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I think that's really true. This is a question that I ask frequently on this podcast. If you listen, I'm always really interested in hearing people's path to becoming the program director, because they tend to have themes, but sometimes people have a little bit of a unique story too. So how did you find yourself with that title?
I will keep this one brief. Basically, I started here, as you heard, in 2014 at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences. And brand new faculty, and it was only 4 or 5 of the faculty members here at the time with the full capacity of 10. I was fairly early on. The program director was from another program, and she started this program and gave me an opportunity to grow. And one of the opportunities was first being director of clinical education. I did that for about a year. And then shortly after that year I was doing that, the founding program director left the program, and for whatever reason thought that I would be a good interim program director. I don't know if she had aspirations of me being program director, but she thought I was good enough at the time for interim. And so I did that for about 9 months. And as we know, ARC does not allow, or at least they say up to 12 months for interim. Our dean got a little antsy because applicants were flaking out for the position, and it went back and forth for a while. And finally, our dean said, hey, how about you taking this? You're doing fine. Everybody seems to be okay with you. Why don't you do it? My apprehension was that I only been in academia for 3 years and felt like I didn't know enough to do enough for the faculty and staff that I'd be leading. And so they offered many opportunities to help develop that, including like the PD 101 and chair school and a formal mentor, which was extremely helpful. And so I accepted that. In 2017, I was appointed the program director and chair, and been doing pretty decent since then.
That's a great note for anyone who's in upper administration in programs to hear and to listen to you, that those opportunities for professional development, you almost can't get enough of those when you're new to a leadership role. I know I have very much benefited from those, not only ones that PAEA offers, but also external ones as well. So it's been really big in my own professional development. I think we can probably all agree on that.
Yeah, I think there, at least in my observation, there are 2 types of leaders out there. One who shies away from coaching and development and kind of gives you this impression that we're supposed to have it figured out. And if you don't have it figured out, you shouldn't be in a leadership role. I don't personally think that's a great way to do things. The other option, which I think shows a lot of humility in leadership, and I think that's a really important trait, is the ones who want you to succeed, want to develop you, will hire a coach for you, recognize that being in a leadership seat is a challenge and requires a lot of skills and empathy and EQ, and they have enough emotional intelligence to recognize that they need that. Therefore, they should also invest that in their leaders. So I remember a transformative mentor of mine who, when I interviewed her for the job as my boss, I was on her search committee for the department chair at the University of Southern California. I asked her the question, how do you improve as a leader? Or how have you improved as a leader? What have you done? And she had the humility to speak to somebody that she knew she was going to supervise and said, I fail as a leader all the time, which is why I have a leadership coach to help me grow as a leader. And I would hope that will continue. And she ended up being one of the best bosses I've ever had. So I'm equally delighted to hear that. And I think that's a strong leadership philosophy at your institution.
And if I can add to that, one of the things that I am really proud of is that the support from our leadership here in our dean's office specifically has been really exceptional, especially when you compare it to some of the other stories I hear from other program directors and the challenges they may face because of one thing or another. Things happen, but that has not been an obstacle for us so far, and I'm really happy about that. And you also mentioned, Kevin, the making mistakes part, and I think that's one key thing that I learned the hard way when I first took over is thinking I needed to know everything, thinking I needed to do everything, and trying my best to avoid making mistakes. And although 3 of those things were the wrong approach, I learned that it's okay to make mistakes. We're going to get through it together as long as I have a rational reason making a decision, and I let people know when I messed up. Being open about that, I think you're right, Kevin, is really key as a leader to say, hey, I messed up and this is why, and we'll make sure we work together to get it fixed.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only way to really grow as a leader is to make mistakes. You have to take risks, and you're going to make them. But as long as you recognize that in the people that work with you as well and give them the grace to make those mistakes. Obviously, you don't want to make big ones. We all make little ones for sure. Let's take a quick break for a word from our episode sponsor, Lincoln Memorial University. Gain advanced clinical expertise or hone your medical education skills, all under the guidance of distinguished faculty. Lincoln Memorial University's program boasts unparalleled instruction. Learn from board-certified physicians and experienced educators. Flexibility. Complete your degree entirely online, allowing you to seamlessly integrate your studies with your current responsibilities. Tailored programs. Choose from clinical medicine for direct patient care or medical education to become a future PA educator. Personalized support. Benefit from one-on-one mentorship throughout your academic journey. Take the next step toward professional fulfillment. Visit Lincoln Memorial University's website in this episode's show notes to learn more and apply today. Lincoln Memorial University, where excellence meets flexibility for your medical future. So let's talk about your program. I looked at your mission and your vision of the program, and it's a really impressive set of statements that you're making. You strive as an institution to produce graduates who will practice transformative patient and family-centered care. And you talk about, in the mission statement, embracing cultural diversity, but I love that in your vision, you also talk about embracing cultural humility. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the program's mission and kind of that nuance between diversity and also humility.
One of the things that we're really striving for as a program, and I think it's an overall goal of our university as well, I'm not speaking for the university here in this, but definitely for our program, is to have as diverse of a classroom setting of students as possible so that each student can learn about different cultural backgrounds, different ethnic backgrounds, things that people celebrate that will be different from their experiences. And as we all know, is that the whole point is that they can get a better understanding and have this cultural humility to really be able to say, I don't know everything about every culture, but I know enough to not at least intentionally cause a person harm by the things I say or how I judge them. And I think the only way to do that is really to try to have some parity in the diversity of our classes with the diversity of the community that they serve. And so that's one of our goals, is to try to mirror that percentage of diversity as much as possible. And that's part of one of our strategic plans that we're working on. But that in-classroom diversity, but also having the idea that everything we do, we need to have some cultural humility about it when we decide on making decisions, making plans, how we change things, what we add or take away from the curriculum, so that we don't neglect the variety of different backgrounds that our students are coming from and just hone in on one particular focus and one particular cultural idea or concept. They're here to learn something other than just medicine. They're learning how to take care of people. And there's a lot of different types of people that need that care, but we need to know how to approach that as well.
It strikes me that those two are key components of transformative patient and family-centered care. If you could get that right and make the patient and their family feel supported and loved in the process of caring for their loved ones, that's a huge transformation in our healthcare system, which is, I think many would argue, widely broken. Not necessarily because of the people, but because of the systems. Mm-hmm. But I wonder if you could delve into a little bit more about other ways that your program is really focusing on transforming healthcare.
Yep. So key things that we are really focused on is trying to keep as much in tune with the new technology that comes out medically. We have some POCUS training that's integrated into our curriculum. Several of our faculty now are trained up on ultrasound. One was an interventional radiology PA, and so they have that skill set. And we have the little handheld ultrasounds that they learn how to use during physical assessment labs, but also throughout the rest of the didactic phase of different techniques, so that when they graduate, they're familiar with POCUS type of care. Other things with simulation, our university has an excellent simulation center. And so we think that as we get them ready in the didactic phase to be as technically savvy as far as what's out there, what's available, and what they can use, and they get to the clinical phase and start actually getting that hands-on application, I think that they have a better head start once they graduate to be able to integrate in almost any type of healthcare setting with whatever technology is available, from writing a SOAP note on your own without having to use a EMR that does the templates for you, be able to actually write a SOAP note if the power goes off, and prescriptions, to using some of the most fascinating things out there right now, ultrasound and other types of high-tech care for patients. And that's just a part of it, but that transformative thing also is a human part too. And I think what we try to teach our students and how we engage with our students, not just in what we teach in the curriculum, but how we engage with them professionally, how we expect professionalism from them, helps to also, I think, gear them towards that ability to have transformative care of patients by having that human part, and that professional aspect is also just as key. And as you all know, we as PAs, as a profession, do a fantastic job with that. And I'm really proud that we can add to that population of healthcare professionals.
So if I'm an applicant that's looking at your program, what are the things that you like to tell applicants to consider, not only about your program and why they should consider coming to your place, but also how to strengthen their application to be a strong consideration for your team?
Good questions, Kevin. One, when we have people to come to the information sessions that we have, or even on interview day, and those who come for an interview, I make a point to let them know that this is an opportunity for you to get as much information about our program as it is for us to get information about you as a potential or applicant, and that you want to use that information to make the best decision for you as an applicant. Just because we have a PA program doesn't mean, oh, I live in Arkansas and I have to go to UAM's PA program. You have to find what resonates with you based off the program's mission, vision, and the people that you engage with. If an applicant finds a program that resonates with them, they should go with that program, because programs are looking for things that match and students that match with them. And that's one of the things I tell them, is that we're not trying to sell our program to say this is the best PA program in the world and you have to come here, but learn about it and make an informed decision about what's best for you. The second part of that, I think, is when it comes to things like interview day, and you ask about tips and advice. We have lots of applicants, and our numbers are going up and up. I'm sure many PA programs are every year now, and it's really difficult. We have 40 seats, and last year we had over 370 applicants. I think we're going to get close to 400 more this year with our interview cycle. So we have to be very discerning. One thing is on paper. When you look good on paper and you put your information in the CASPA, books, hey, that looks like a good applicant. Let's bring him in for an interview. The second half of that absolutely is the interview. And I cannot stress enough, one big piece of takeaway that people are to listen to this, to considering applying to whatever program it is, be prepared to interview. That includes things like practicing going over interview questions with someone who can give you true objective feedback. I recommend not using your parents or your best friend or your husband or wife or whatever, your spouse. Use somebody who really can give you feedback that's going to be helpful for you. That's going to be one key component that makes you look prepared when you talk. Know the mission and the vision and aspects of the program. Go to the program's website and really digest that information and see what resonates with you, and try to incorporate that into your answers. That really tells people sitting on the other side of the table that you took time to actually find out about the program and not just send out 6 applications and see whichever one gets you an interview. If you really want to be a part of that program, know that program before you step foot in there on interview day, and be able to tell them something about their program, because that's what we're looking for mostly.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. I think as much as we are interviewing, applicants are really trying to find the right fit for them as well. And there's just something about that vibe and that connection that you have when you set foot on a campus and you meet the people as a part of that program and you talk with the students. I think that there's a real connection that's made there. And that has to be really a strong factor of why you choose a program. Well, we're getting close to wrapping up here, but we always like to give our guests an opportunity to just give us parting thoughts. Really, if there's anything else you'd like to share with us, if you have final bits of advice about the PA profession for our listeners, or really anything additional you'd like to share about your program, the stage is yours.
I'll say this as a little plug, since you all gave me this opportunity about things that make our program unique, just because I think it's helpful for people making their mind up. I mentioned earlier, we have a very small class size, 40 students with 10 faculty. So that's 4:1 student to faculty ratio, which is really helpful for us to make sure we have a good intimate relationship with our students and can help them with resources that are needed. Our campus has several resources, including mental health, as well as student success for study skills that we use on a regular basis to make sure students that we accept, we graduate, because that's our goal overall. And I think that we also incorporate mindfulness into the first semester of our curriculum. One of our faculty is mindfulness trained, core of mindfulness. And so they learn 1 hour a week, they do some mindfulness just to help understand how to better deal with a lot of the stress and frustrations that come along with being a PA students. And we also have a partnership with 12th Street Health and Wellness Center, which is a free student-run clinic right down the road from our university, that students see patients that don't have any health insurance and evaluate them and make decisions, and preceptors are there to help manage those patients. So they're doing a community service as well. Our students are actively engaged. Those are the things that I think our program really has at our highlights that I think are key, that really do draw the ones that come, and the ones that come back as faculty. We have half of our faculty are alumni almost. And I'm really proud of that fact. And I think that what we do is something that's true and honest, and it's the culture that we foster here is most important. And we do foster a culture of family and non-competition. This is not a competition. This is a team effort to get through this program and to be the best of the community you go back to and serve. And my last parting words here is know what you're getting into, because it is a unique field. But once you set your heart to it, I think you're making one of the best decisions of your life. And I know that was that way for me, and I'm sure you all probably feel the same as well. So thank you again for giving me this time and this voice and this audience. And I'm hopeful that the things that I got a chance to say today and relay is inspiring to someone, maybe even just a little bit. But again, I do thank you all for this opportunity. It's really an honor to be here.
It was an honor to have you, Will. Thanks for joining us. We want to thank our guest, Dr. Will Williams, for his time and insights on the University of Arkansas PA program. And we also want to thank Will for his service to our nation. Finally, we'd like to give a big thanks again to our episode sponsor, Lincoln Memorial University. Tune in next time as we speak with leaders of our profession, both nationally and worldwide.